Success Insight shares the stories of the people with passion and drive who make things happen in the world. Here's your host, Howard Fox.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Success Insight podcast. Today's episode is another addition to our Outdoor Adventure Series. Now, the Outdoor Adventure Series celebrates individuals and families, businesses, and organizations that seek out and promote the exploration of the great outdoors. And our guest today is Allie Vaughan, the head of product at Luno. Allie, welcome to the Success Insight podcast.
Thanks, Howard. Glad to chat with you.
Fantastic. Now, I was first introduced to Luno, just over a year ago, because I bought my Subaru Crosstrek, which is like the perfect outdoor vehicle. And I was starting to explore, how can I do like one-day campings? Because I'm not a diehard camper, never done it, probably could do it, but I was just looking to get out to the desert for a day, and I came across Luno and the mattress, and just a really kind of a fun experience. And it's been great to get to know the folks at Luno. And you've got really in the year that you've got a lot of products going on within your list of gear that you provide. We're going to talk about that. But first, I would love if you could share a little bit about what does it mean to be a head of product, and how did life kind of evolve to where, you're out there in beautiful Santa Barbara, which I am envious about. But tell us a little bit of the backstory. Who is Allie Vaughan, and how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, sure thing. Well, first things first, I'm so glad you found Luno, and it's been really a pleasure getting to know you as well, and welcome you to this little community that we're building. I studied product design. It's, I guess, formerly called industrial design, but product design is just easier to tell your family and friends. And I graduated with that degree, and then kind of had an explorative route into Luno, where I was, before this, designing children's toys. And then after that, began doing bicycle guiding overseas in Italy and in Wyoming. And so kind of had this connection to the outdoors that ran pretty deep in my heart, and something I wanted to continue to pursue career-wise. Went to school with Pete and Sarah, the founders, and had worked with them a little bit in college. And when they were ready to start Luno, I'm lucky that they called me, knowing that I kind of had this passion for the outdoors, and Pete knew my product design experience. And so that's how I got roped in. And it was just really serendipitous and a huge blessing at that time to get pulled in at such an early stage.
That's fantastic. Now, I'm curious, and in the spirit of full disclosure, some of my lines of questioning, they're not straight lines, they're kind of circuitous. So, yeah. You mentioned about the bikes, and I was going back through some of the show notes that you shared, and I want to talk about that, because that you had shared that was one of your first jobs, is working in a bike shop, which I think is pretty cool. Had you always been an outdoors kind of person? Did your family go out on these outdoor adventures? How did you get involved with the outdoors? Because that thread is continuing in your career. Yeah.
I credit my dad fully with that. We weren't really like an outdoorsy family per se. We didn't do camping trips on the weekends. But my dad was really intentional about taking me outside. And anytime I expressed an interest in a sport, he'd kind of back me up. So when I wanted to snowboard, he got me snowboard. When I wanted to skateboard down the hill by our house, he let me do it. And he has a big love for fly fishing and now backpacking. And we biked together a lot growing up. So it was just kind of this part of my life that I never questioned or realized until I reflected on it and was like, hey, this is something I've been doing for a while. Like, I feel like I've accrued enough knowledge in here to do something with it. But bikes has always kind of been the entry point and the thread to exploring and being outdoors.
Yeah. And where were you raised that you had all this outdoor availability?
In the least outdoorsy state in the U.S., probably. I was in Iowa.
I was off the top of my head before you said it, I'm thinking probably Iowa, could have been Indiana, but Iowa, that's good.
Yeah, exactly. The heartland.
But you had RAGBRAI. You have RAGBRAI in Iowa.
I do. Oh, it's great when someone knows what RAGBRAI is.
Yeah. Well, tell it for our listeners. Allie's going to share with us what is RAGBRAI.
Yes, RAGBRAI is my favorite thing to promote. It's Register's annual Great Bike Ride Across Iowa. The Des Moines Register is our newspaper. And it is an epic 7-day bike ride across farm roads and highways through all these little towns in Iowa, from river to river. So back tire and then front tire into the two rivers, Missouri and the Mississippi. Took me a second there. And I actually grew up doing that, since I was like 8 years old. My dad stuck me on a tandem.
Oh, wow.
And then eventually got my own bike. And then we rode it a bunch of times together with my uncles. And that was always a huge summer adventure that I got to go do with all the guys. Just got to be tagged along and ride my bike across Iowa.
That's fantastic. I had a couple 60-mile bike rides in me, I think 3 of them. And my best friend at the time, I know he did RagBride, and I know a couple other folks that have as well. But yeah, I never had the pleasure. I think I would have needed a really nice road bike because, and he just slogging around in a mountain bike, just that would have killed me.
No, I agree. The road bike and the efficiency of the road bike make a huge difference, especially because you don't realize it, but Iowa gets pretty hilly in certain places. The route changes every year, so you don't really know where you're going until a couple months before. But there are a couple of people who have chosen more interpretive routes. There's a guy who unicycles it, and I have seen someone who rollerblades the whole thing, which is just insanity.
That is insanity.
I can't imagine.
So how did you get your first job working in the bike shop? Because I always thought that's pretty cool. You get to get down and dirty with a bike. All the tools are literally right within arm's reach. So you can set up a bike shop anywhere, literally.
Yeah, this was, again, a very fortuitous kind of moment of my life, and definitely a defining moment. My dad had always frequented this bike shop called Bike World in Iowa, and Forrest Ridgway is the owner. And as a kid, I would come in there and rip around on the bikes and play with all the stuff and probably mess up most of their displays. But he always welcomed me, and we bought all our bikes from him, all our gear from him. And he said, when I was a kid, when you turn 14, I want you to come work at my bike shop. And so the day I turned 14, I walked in there. I was like, Forrest, I'm 14. I'm ready to work for you. And he gave me the job, and I worked there all through high school and then a little bit into college, and just grew to really love my time at the bike shop.
That's fantastic. Now, when you went into college, where did you go, by the way?
I went to Iowa State University.
Iowa State. Is that okay? Now, my best friend's wife will probably cringe, but is that the Hawkeyes?
That's the Cyclones.
Okay. Sorry, Jill. Sorry. So, all right. So you went to school at Iowa State. And you studied industrial design there.
Correct.
How did you end up in that type of profession?
I first started in architecture, actually. Since I was 8 years old, I wanted to be an architect and envisioned myself. I used to build little buildings out of cardboard and design all these things. And but I got into architecture and became kind of disenchanted with the way it was very different than what I envisioned it to be. I thought it would be very creative and iterative and fast and fun. And it was actually much more of like a slow, methodical process. And I think that first year, I really just, something changed in me. And I was, again, very serendipitously, I was walking out of the design college to change my major into business, because I always kind of had this business interest. And I ran into a professor of mine, and she said, I think you'd be a good fit for industrial design. And I knew her pretty well. She knew me pretty well, and walked back upstairs and changed my major and loved it immediately. So I couldn't have found better for myself. And I think a big part of that too is my dad was really handy and is really handy. And we were always building stuff and making stuff at my house. So I felt pretty confident doing that.
Just jumping ahead for a second, this thread then to Luno and to the products is kind of like the incredible logical journey. I mean, plus your love of the outdoors as well. And so when you got out of college, you've got this degree, how'd you end up doing bike tours in Europe?
Well, I had a great job before designing toys for a company named called Tegu. And I lost that job kind of out of the blue and didn't have much else to do at that point. Kind of happened quickly and for some reasons out of everyone's control. And then decidedly had this opportunity passed to me by a couple of people that were like, hey, I think you'd be good for this. I think you'd be good for this. And they were specifically hiring cycling guides that spoke Italian and had pretty good working knowledge of bikes, both of which I had. And
that is serendipitous.
Yeah, I know. It was the perfect timing. So I actually bought a one-way ticket over to Italy and to go interview for the job, which was probably the riskiest thing I've ever done.
That's confidence too, one way.
I did feel a little bit confident about that opportunity. They don't have a great acceptance rate, but I felt like I knew the stuff they needed at the time. And so, yeah, I ended up getting the job and just staying over there and working for a few months with them, leading cycling tours, these week-long tours across in different cities of Italy.
That's fantastic. And with the work doing that, when you're doing these cycling tours, are you carrying everything you need? Like the tent, the padding, the food, the water? Are you carrying everything, or are you riding and you've got a transport vehicle?
Yeah, much more the second. It is a luxury vacation in a lot of ways. Backroads covers everything. They've got everything thought of. Luxury hotels, really nice meals, couple of vans following you with bike repair on hand, snacks on hand, everything you could need. So it's a really fun service-based job because you're providing a really awesome experience for people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, how'd you end up then back into the US and kind of hooking up with Pete and Sarah?
Yeah, I got a call from Pete when he was testing the product in Iceland. He had messaged me and said, hey, I'm thinking of starting this company. I want to see if you're interested. Do you have time to call me? And at that time I was in Wyoming leading cycling tours as well. And I was about to go over to Italy. Yeah. And I said, I'm going to give this a shot. I know this guy's entrepreneurial. I had known his background, how successful he has been, and how much just incredible knowledge he has regarding product design and development. So I was like, this feels like something. And so we were coordinating time zones while I was working, and he was in Iceland, and heard from him and what his vision was for the company. And so I said, hey, I'm going to Italy, but if this is still a thing in a couple months and all goes as you've planned, I want to do it. And so when I was in Italy, I, kept in touch with him, signed a contract while I was over there. And I was really ready to kind of sink my teeth into something more product related at the time. So it came at a perfect time for me in my life with the transition I wanted to make.
That's fantastic. And when you began to get into the work with Luno, how did you use your product knowledge, design knowledge to kind of help support this vision that Pete and Sarah had?
Good question.
Every once in a while, I ask good questions. Every once in a while.
No, they've all been good questions. As if. Yeah, that's a great question. I suppose I think with people who are a small team working together, everyone kind of takes their piece of the pie and owns it. And I think I ended up being a pretty good mediator and voice of our customer for the team, because I had some pretty real experiences with camping and outdoor excursions and such. I felt like I brought a lot to the table as far as knowledge of useful products in the outdoors, what I enjoyed using, what I didn't like using, certain materials that were worthwhile and not, and kind of general behavior in the outdoors as far as people I'd been around and on excursions with. And then I think kind of Pete was on the business and the development side. He had a very keen knowledge of that. And Sarah has a great eye for design, great eye for marketing. And so I think between the three of us, we made a really great team early on, with me kind of more on the product focus.
That's fantastic. And when you began to launch, beginning with the mattress, and by the way, this is the Luno Life mattress. It got lunolife.com and pick yourself up one. It's great. It fits so nicely into my Crosstrek there. How did you begin to incorporate the voice of the customer into this? Because we've had a couple conversations with a couple of the Luno ambassadors who have taken to going around the country with their mattresses. So, and I'm curious how that voice of the customer comes in for the mattress and also the other products that you're producing.
Yeah. I think one of the big things that comes to mind when you mention that is the initial shift we had to make between our expectation and the reality of who was purchasing our products. This was obviously once we had some data. But early on, I remember making calls to a few of our first customers. I think we had, our first 10 orders. I emailed every single person and said, hey, can I call you and hear why you bought this, what you've liked about it? And so I think just being on the ground and trying to talk to people was one of the first and most obvious ways I could think of to bring in the voice of the customer. But like I mentioned, shifting our expectation was really big because product design in a vacuum is not necessarily good product design, right? You can design all you want for yourself or the 3 people sitting in the room with you, but until you understand what people's pain points actually are with the experience, you're designing a product for yourself. And so one of the biggest things was figuring out who our customer actually was and what their needs truly were, and being open to shifting when we learned something that was contrary to what we believed. And I think that's where I was adding value initially was through those conversations and those pretty bold shifts when we found out things that needed to change.
So to put you on the spot, who are your customers and what are their needs?
Yeah, I think that has changed a lot since we first started. We kind of thought that this would be this hardcore outdoorsman, right? But what we found was our product actually invited a lot of people who were new to camping and who needed a lower barrier to entry than the gear required for a tent, because a tent requires quite a few pieces. I mean, if you're going to tent camp, sleeping pad, sleeping bag, some sort of cooking stovetop and such, and then, rain flies, all that jazz. So there's a lot more to think about when you're tent camping. Whereas if you have your car and you lay down a mattress, you can use pillows from home, you can use blankets from home, really low barrier to entry. But we had no idea that was our customer at first until people started sending us pictures and saying, oh yeah, my boyfriend got this because I don't like camping, but I love camping on my Luno. It's way more comfortable than home. And I think our age range dramatically changed from what our expectation was, because it is actually a lot more welcoming than we initially realized. And if I had to sum it up, I'd say that our customer is more or less the REI shopper, which is a huge range, but I think that's fair for our product.
As somebody who lives literally, Allie, right above an REI, I love that. I love dangerous. That. Something, I use those words exactly. It's dangerous.
Yeah.
Because everything that I've needed, it's either come from, Big A in a box with a swoosh, or it's come from downstairs at REI. You're designing a lot of new products and have brought those to market. They're on the website. How did that evolution begin to evolve? I mean, going from the initial mattress, okay, if I'm sleeping on a mattress, the very next thing I need to worry about is a set of sheets, which I thought that's perfect. But then after the sheets, how did you begin to say, what's next?
Yeah. A lot of that was our own experience, I would say. So one of the things that we do a lot of is using our product. I think I slept on that mattress the first year and a half I worked with Luno more times than I can even think back and count. It was just every weekend, probably 3 nights I was sleeping on it. And so there's these little nuances that come up, right? Or annoyances almost that come up and you're like, that wasn't a problem last weekend, but now that's a problem. Camping in California in the north versus the south. Well, there's bugs here, but there's not bugs here. And now I'm having a problem. And that little spark is that insight when you're sitting there and you're like, I need a solution to this product and I have an avenue to solve it because I'm in the position of this company. So a lot of it came from personal experience more than anything. I can think of a few times where we've had people in our office that we work with or customers that we are close to, like Channing, for example, mentioning something to us saying, hey, have you guys seen this? I use this DIY solution and I want you to make one. So our window screens were a similar solution to that. We were camping, there were bugs. This is not fun. How do what can we change? And saw people's DIY solutions, but thought, let's make our own. Let's figure this out. So
Very
little
good.
things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny when I interviewed Channing for the episode, talk about his outdoor experience, use of Luno. One of my questions that I'd have for him is like, where do you put all your gear? And because you've got to store stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
Even if it's for a day, you still have stuff you've got to bring. And it's through conversations like with Shannon that, okay, I've solved that problem now. Now I just need to take my butt out of Las Vegas and go away for a night. I mean, I was out in Mojave Saturday night taking, the Milky Way shots or time lapse, which was excruciating because it takes so long. 24 shots per second. It's like, that's a lot of photographs. I digress. But I had the perfect parking spot, and I should have just stayed there, and camped out. But I drove home because I had work to do, which of course I didn't do any work. Now, this is the typical beer kind of conversation we're having. I'm kind of letting you know what didn't work out for me. But let's get back to you. So you have this evolution. You're building new products based on a need. Somebody's sharing it with you. What are some of the activities that you've been involved with Luno, and even the customers, the folks that like the Channings, the Scott Luthodes of the world, who are really big in the outdoor world? Mm-hmm. By the way, it was Scott that introduced, through his YouTube video, that I was introduced to the Luno mattress.
Really? Yeah. Oh, right on. Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, so I need to circle back with Scott anyways, because he's an ambassador. Yeah. But how did you, come together with a lot of your customer base, break bread, have cold beers and bottles of wine? Because, by the way, in Italy, I could see you were probably eating pretty well.
I sure was.
Yeah. What kind of activity is Luno involved within the community to bring its customers together?
One of the great things we were doing before COVID was we were hosting community campouts. So we just would post about an open invite on our social media channels and on our website, and allow anyone and everyone to come out, grill burgers for everybody, and provide some beers and drinks, and even made a whole itinerary from hiking to yoga to rock climbing. We did a bunch of stuff with folks, and if people didn't have a mattress, we brought some extras, and if their car was compatible, we just handed them one and said, hey, try this tonight. But all just in the name of connecting community and making people feel welcome in the outdoors and introducing them to a new product. And that's always proven to be a really awesome way we've seen our brand in real life.
Fantastic. And I will tell you, when we fully open up from COVID and you start launching those events again, I am in.
Yes, I am in. See you there.
I am in. So I'm curious. Well, two questions. One is, you kind of look back at your trajectory. Mm-hmm. You have your family. Your father was definitely very interested in the outdoor activities. Probably, does he sleep on a Luno mattress?
He hasn't yet, but I'll get him to.
Okay.
His car is not compatible, so we'll give him that. All
right. So as you kind of look back on your career, your life trajectory, what's your aha moment there? I mean, what you've kind of experienced, like, wow, what am I, and what you're doing today?
I think the aha moment that has stuck with me most from Luno is just meeting the people and realizing the value that we could add to life with a product like this. When you talk to people and say you're designing a mattress, it's not kind of the sexiest product design endeavor you can grab hold of. But when you start meeting real people whose lives have been impacted for the better from a piece of camping gear like we provide, that really makes it all worthwhile. I think that one of the bigger takeaways and lessons that I've gotten from this experience is that risk is really worth it, and kind of playing it fast and loose can really pay off at times. There's this figure it out mentality and this resourcefulness that's forced when you walk into a risk like that. And I really enjoy the ways it's shaped me personally and professionally, and the ways that I've had to bend to work with and build a really good team. I think it's just something everyone should experience.
Very good. And as you kind of look back and, from the early days to today, is there some adventures, maybe you've already described that with the rag ride or the bike tours in Italy or Wyoming. some events that really stuck out for you as like, wow, this was an unbelievable experience. And I'm so glad I'm here in the moment.
As far as an outdoor adventure, you mentioned?
Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, I had a bikepacking experience with two of my friends. This is most recent, but with two friends on the Colorado Trail. And it's two gal friends from college that I just could not love doing things more with in the outdoors. They're both so equipped and so awesome. And that trip was such a sufferfest. It was just grueling and brutal. But every night I went to bed belly laughing and just so full of wonder and joy at what our bodies could do and how beautiful the outdoors were. And it's things like that where you're just living in the moment. You're like, gosh, my body hurts everywhere. I'm not sure if I have enough food. I feel so tired, but I'm so grateful that I'm right here right now. I think that's one that really comes to mind for me.
That's fantastic. And where do you see your career going? I mean, hopefully a long, happy career with Luno, but anything special that's still left for you that you want to accomplish? I mean, you've got your whole life ahead of you, but this feels like the interview. What's your 5-year plan? What's your 10-year plan? But are there some things that it's like, I want to do this. This is going to happen.
Yeah, if you said 5-year plan, I'm sure my dad would have loved to tune in and hear the answer to that.
All right.
I've always had a dream. This is so random. I've always had a dream of opening some sort of shop in the community, whether it's a side gig or full time. I've always wanted to have a bike shop, a coffee shop, a climbing gym, anything where I can show up every day and be in front of people and get to know people in the community. That's kind of a pipe dream for me at some point that I think I'll transition into something where I can see people more regularly and provide something fun for the community. That's a dream of mine.
Well, that sounds great. I mean, I could, in my mind, anything goes well with coffee shops. So how about the combination coffee bike shop?
Yes.
Teach little kids how to take care of their bikes. Bring your beat up old bike and we'll teach you how to fix it, type thing.
Yeah. The other dream I have is an adventure camp for kiddos. I think that would be really fun. It's a little bit bigger, but I think it would be really fun.
Well, you're meeting so many great people who are in the outdoor adventure space that, something like that can most definitely happen. So you never know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So Allie, if our listeners would like to learn more about the work you're doing at Luno or would like to perhaps connect with you socially, what are the best way on the social media, by the way? Yeah. I needed to clarify that. Where are the best places for them to go?
You can always reach me through our website on lunolife.com. Our support inbox will always come to me if it mentions me. You can always follow along on Instagram as well. I'll pop in there from time to time to say hey, and people can always connect you over to me at that point too.
Fantastic. Well, Allie, it's been a pleasure to kind of get to know you and really, again, the folks at Luno. You guys have been, Sarah, Pete have been absolute pleasures to work with. And, I want to thank you again. I mean, this is a wonderful product. And, when I moved to Vegas from Chicago, which is, that's a kind of another town area like Illinois, in Iowa. It's like, okay, now what? What do I do?
Yeah.
We have a lake, though. We do have a lake. But it's been a wonderful year of just kind of getting to know, the environment around Las Vegas, the parks, and just knowing that I can get out and, spend the night, enjoy the stars, and zip back home afterwards. So Luno's been a fantastic addition to the back of my car because that's where it is. But
thank you, Howard.
Thank you so much. And, I look forward to once we fully come away from COVID is those little adventures you guys are going to plan. Because like I say, I'm in.
Hey, we're waiting for you. I'll be so excited to see you there. It'll be a blast. I can't wait to start those up again.
Fantastic. Well, Allie, once again, it's been a pleasure to have you on Success Insight and the Outdoor Adventure Series.
Thank you, Howard. Great chatting with you.
All right. All right, folks, we have just been chatting with Allie Vaughan. She's the head of product at Luno. And, what more can we say? I mean, this is the Outdoor Adventure Series, and it's really, it's the people who help people like me get out and have those adventures. And there's, really with a line of products that are designed to, solve the issues of what it means to get out and, do it, cost effectively as well as safety wise and comfort wise. And so getting to know the folks at Luno, at Pete Ducato and Sarah and Allie, it's just been a wonderful experience to get to know these folks, and definitely I'm looking forward to some of the future parties. So gives me another reason to get in the car and go further west. So I hope you enjoyed today's podcast episode. Do let us know. You can visit us on successinsightpodcast.com. And you can also find us on Facebook and LinkedIn, Success Insight Podcast, as well as the major podcasting platforms, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Pandora. I'm missing a couple, of course, Spotify, because we have our outdoor adventure playlist. So you can not only hear this episode with Allie, but all the other outdoor adventure episodes that we have recorded. So lots of places that you can get to know more about us, and also the phenomenal guests that we have had on the show. All right, folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, go out there, have a phenomenal day. And we will see you on the next episode on the Success Insight Podcast and potentially the Outdoor Adventure Series. Take care now.
Success Insight is a production of Fox Coaching and First Story Strategies. Find us online, successinsightpodcast.com.